I died. God revealed the shocking truth. Life's a dangerous illusion, you must know. The sterile hum of the hospital room was a drone, a dull, constant thrum against Nancy Ryan's ears. Her eyes, usually sharp, dissecting, now blurred, fixated on the slow, rhythmic drip of the IV bag beside her bed. Each clear drop felt like an echo of time, pulling her back. But back to what? This wasn't back. It was just a different kind of here. Her throat felt tight, a golf ball lodged right behind her Adam's apple. Her chest ached with a strange, hollow emptiness that no amount of oxygen could fill. 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes on that operating table. And in those 2 minutes, everything she had ever believed, everything she had built her life on, had shattered. Science, logic, the cold, hard facts, all of it, gone. She shifted, the crisp sheets cool against her skin, a foreign sensation. This body, these hands, they felt like borrowed things, props in a play she no longer understood. The hospital room, with its pale green walls and the insistent beep of a monitor nearby, felt less like a place and more like a carefully constructed set. An illusion, a stage. The word echoed, not from her own thoughts, but from somewhere deeper, a truth etched directly onto her soul. Illusion, dangerous, perilous. Her gaze drifted to the window, the harsh afternoon light painting a stripe across the floor. Outside, cars hummed past. People walked, talked, laughed. They were so busy, so engaged in their roles, unaware. That was the crushing weight. They didn't know. They were trapped, believing in the solidity of their desks, the importance of their meetings, the reality of their anxieties. They were chasing shadows, accumulating dust, blinded by attachments, by fears, by judgments. A wave of nausea hit her, not from the lingering anesthetic, but from the sheer suffocating burden of it. She closed her eyes. The peace, the unconditional love, the absolute knowing, it was still there, a whisper in her mind, a phantom limb of blissful existence, calling her back. Every fiber of her being screamed to return to that realm, to shed this heavy physical shell, this elaborate charade. But then, the faces flashed before her eyes. The doctors, kind in their ignorance, her colleagues, brilliant, yet so deeply lost in the very truth she now knew to be a lie. They were ensnared, blind, and the knowledge, the absolute certainty that their lives, her old life, was built on a perilous misunderstanding, clawed at her. It was a silent warning, a constant, gnawing pain in her gut. How could she just exist? How could she let them continue oblivious on a stage she now saw through, a stage fraught with dangers they couldn't even perceive? The dilemma twisted inside her like a barbed wire. Her reputation, her career, her very sanity, all hinged on this unbearable secret. Expose the lie? Scream the truth into a world that would undoubtedly declare her insane? Or silence the divine voice, condemn herself to a solitary existence, a torment of knowing, while humanity danced on the precipice of their own making? The thought of carrying this alone, the immense weight of it, was already pushing her to the brink. What if she chose silence? What then? What happens when the only reality you know is the one everyone else is blind to? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning for you. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has unsubscribed them without notice. Just give that red button below a quick check to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content coming up. And since you're there, smash that powerful like button. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. What happens when the only reality you know is the one everyone else is blind to? The question echoed, a heavy, cold stone in Nancy's gut. She stared at the pale green wall opposite her bed, the pattern on it seeming to swirl, almost mocking her. Each beat of the distant monitor, a rhythmic reassurance for other patients, hammered a terrifying truth into her. She was alive, trapped. The burden of the secret, the crushing weight of it, threatened to suffocate her, pressing down on her chest until it ached. Her fingers, still weak and slightly numb, twitched against the cool, crisp sheet, longing for that phantom limb of blissful existence. She could feel its constant pull, a whisper in her mind, but also the gnawing certainty that her old life, the one she now saw through, was a dangerous, carefully constructed lie. This existence was a performance she could no longer bear. A low hum, always present, seemed to intensify. It wasn't the hospital's usual drone, the familiar mechanical lull. This was something deeper, more resonant, vibrating through the very air, through her bones. Her eyes darted to the window again, to the single, harsh stripe of afternoon light painted across the floor. It remained fixed, unmoving, defying the natural progression of the sun. The sun, in the real world, shifted with the minutes. But this light, it was absolute, frozen. A flicker of profound unease, cold and sharp, pricked at her, sliding a chill down her spine. It was too perfect, too still. The pale green walls, the silent drip of the IV, the insistent, almost unnatural beep of the monitor nearby. All of it felt too staged, a meticulous calm that felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. Suddenly, the low hum wasn't just intensifying. It was vibrating through the bed, through every cell in her body, a deafening resonance. The static stripe of light on the floor shivered, then warped, stretching, distorting like a broken film, pulling apart at the seams. The pale green walls of the room rippled, dissolving into a stark metallic gray, revealing a cold, sterile environment beneath. The medical monitor, its friendly beep now a harsh digital shriek, morphed into a complex array of glowing conduits and pulsing data streams, whirring to life with a terrifying purpose. She wasn't in a bed. Her body was strapped firmly to a narrow, cold slab, wires trailing from her scalp, from her temples. From the base of her spine, each one a tendril of D. The IV drip was a thick, luminescent cable, burrowing deep into her arm, pumping something not life-giving, but controlling. And then the voice, the same voice that had called itself God, the one that had revealed the truth of the illusion, returned. But it wasn't a whisper of love or peace, no phantom limb of bliss. It was a cold, synthesized command, reverberating inside her skull, a sound that bypassed her ears entirely, bypassing every filter. The illusion is complete. Subject 7. Phase 1 successful. Belief established. Preparation for integration initiated. The words were a brand, searing into her consciousness, obliterating all else. Nancy's eyes snapped open, wider than they had ever been, unblinking, fixed on the metallic ceiling above. Her throat constricted, a raw, ragged sound trying to tear free, but only a choked gasp escaped her lips. Every muscle in her body locked, rigid with a terror that eclipsed everything before, the death and the revelation, now seeming like a cruel, twisted dream. The blissful realm, the dangerous illusion, the entire fabricated return, all of it was a lie, a meticulously crafted trap designed not to enlighten her, but to ensnare her, to program her. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, desperate drum of pure, unadulterated terror. No scream came, only a silent, guttural sound of absolute horror, trapped deep within her. She was awake, but not in the way she had thought, and the reality she now found herself in was infinitely more terrifying than any illusion she could have ever imagined. Nancy's eyes, wide and fixed on the metallic ceiling, burned. A choked gasp caught in her throat, a raw, desperate sound that went nowhere. The cold slab bit into her back. Every fiber screamed, locked in a rigid terror. The voice, cold and synthesized, still vibrated inside her skull, an unbearable echo. Subject 7. Phase 1 successful. Belief established. Preparation for integration initiated. This wasn't a dream. This was a deeper, colder nightmare. A high-pitched whine began to pulse through the room, growing steadily, drilling into her ears, making her teeth ache. The luminescent cable in her arm pulsed with a faint, sickly green light, a phantom limb of fear burrowing deeper. She thrashed, muscles straining against the restraints, but they held fast, unforgiving. The metallic ceiling, vast and seamless, suddenly felt like the roof of a cage. Her breath hitched. A tiny, almost imperceptible distortion shimmered on its polished surface. A ripple, not of light, but of something else. It was brief, a flicker, a fleeting image caught, then gone. Too fast. The voice returned, sharper now, less synthesized, almost familiar. A sudden jolt of electricity surged through the wires attached to her scalp, a blinding flash behind her eyes, forcing a guttural cry from her lips. Her vision blurred, then snapped into impossible focus. The metallic ceiling was no longer a ceiling. It was a vast, curved display screen, reflecting rows upon rows of cold, glowing conduits and pulsing data streams, whirring with relentless purpose. And amidst the chaotic sprawl of light and data, one image, terrifyingly clear, began to coalesce. It was a face, her face, but younger, sharper, devoid of the fear that now contorted her own. And next to it, words, not the subject 7 she dreaded, but something far worse, scrawled in urgent, blocky red text. System override, Protocol Nancy R., breach imminent. The voice, no longer synthesized, but chillingly, undeniably, her own voice, echoed from hidden speakers that hummed to life around her. It was a recording, clear as day, yet warped by something insidious. Initiating Subject Protocol 7, her own voice commanded, calm, clinical, utterly devoid of emotion. Reality fabrication at 98%. Neural pathway engagement, complete. Memory implantation, optimal. Begin Phase 2, truth assimilation. Her own words, her own cadence, the cool, detached tone she used during her simulations, now played back to her, a cruel, mocking loop. The God she had believed in, the revelation she had experienced, every single horrifying detail of the illusion. She had built it. She had designed every single line of code, every nuance of fear, every moment of false hope. She was the architect of this torture. The horrifying truth clawed its way into her consciousness, a parasite, colder than any slab, sharper than any wire. She wasn't Subject 7. She was Operator Ryan, and the system she created, the protocol she designed to break minds, had turned on her. The faces of the doctors, her colleagues, the people outside the window, all flashed before her eyes again. But this time, they weren't victims. They were the test subjects, her test subjects, and now she was one of them. The monitor next to her, no longer a friendly beep, but a harsh digital shriek, flashed a single terrifying word. Loop. Her own voice repeated the command. Begin Phase 2, truth assimilation. The wires on her head vibrated with new, terrifying power. The wires on her head vibrated with new, terrifying power. Her own voice, detached and clinical, echoed from hidden speakers. A cruel loop. Begin Phase 2, Truth Assimilation. Nancy, or Operator Ryan, thrashed, the cold slab biting into her back, the restraints unforgiving. The metallic ceiling, the curved display screen, showed her own face, younger, sharper, beside the red text. System override, Protocol Nancy R, breach imminent. Her heart hammered, a frantic drum against ribs, rigid with a terror that clawed at her. She had built this. She was the architect. The knowledge was a burning acid, dissolving her very being. The luminescent cable in her arm pulsed with that sickly green light, burrowing deeper, pumping the control. Her breath hitched. The air, thick with the hum, seemed to press in. The image of her younger self on the screen, that sharp, knowing gaze, it flickered. A tiny, almost imperceptible shimmer, like static across an old TV, obscured it for a microsecond. Then it was gone, but it had been there. A ghost of a different face, a different name, fleeting, unsettling. She pushed against it, against the rising panic, clinging to the horrifying certainty, I did this. Her voice inside her skull repeated the command. Begin Phase 2, Truth Assimilation. The words, her own words, now felt like a mockery. This was the punishment, the ultimate irony. Then the screen above her, filled with her younger face, distorted again. Not a shimmer this time, but a profound shift. The red text, System Override Protocol Nancy R, breach imminent, began to stretch, warp, then resolve into new, stark white characters. Phase 2 activated. Subjection complete. The clinical voice, her voice, cut off abruptly, replaced by a new, equally synthesized but vastly different voice. Deeper, older, and undeniably, chillingly male. It vibrated, not just inside her skull, but throughout the entire chamber, a low, resonant thrum that shook the very air. Subject 7, it boomed, devoid of warmth, devoid of any pretense of God. The Operator Ryan conditioning is stable. Self-blame matrix fully integrated. We have successfully calibrated the parameters for maximum cognitive dissonance. The illusion of control was essential. Her mind needed to be broken from the inside out. Nancy's breath caught. The previous voice, her voice, the one that had just moments ago been the ultimate proof of her identity, flashed through her mind. It hadn't been her. It had been programmed. An audio loop designed to convince her she was the torturer, not the tortured. The simulations. She remembered. The colleagues. The design of the protocol. Every single memory of her life as Operator Ryan. Meticulously, horrifically fabricated. Her reputation, her career, her very sanity, all of it had been built on a lie. Not a lie she perpetrated, but a lie inflicted upon her. She wasn't the architect. She was still just Subject 7. Always had been. The truth of being Operator Ryan was the deepest, most agonizing layer of the illusion. A raw, guttural cry tore free from her lips, an animal sound of pure, unadulterated devastation. Her eyes, wide and unfocused, stared at the monstrous screen, which now displayed not her face, but abstract data patterns, swirling and shifting with an indifferent, terrible beauty. The humiliation, the ultimate betrayal, not by a system she built, but by an unseen, monstrous intelligence that had played with her very identity. She had been a puppet, believing she was the puppeteer, only to have that illusion shattered in the most brutal way possible. The luminescent cable in her arm pulsed, a final, sickening green, and the male voice, colder than ice, delivered the ultimate blow. Now, Subject 7, for the true assimilation. A blinding white light erupted from the conduits around her, engulfing everything. Her scream was swallowed whole. A blinding white light erupted from the conduits around her, engulfing everything. Her scream was swallowed whole. The world dissolved into pure, searing brilliance. It wasn't just light. It was a physical force, pressing down, obliterating, stripping away every sensation, every thought. Her body, the cold slab, the restraints, they ceased to exist, mere ghosts in the absolute void of white. There was no pain, not exactly, but an incomprehensible pressure, a stretching of her very consciousness to its breaking point. It felt like an endless fall into nothing, yet simultaneously an explosive expansion, as if she were becoming everything. The male voice, so chilling moments before, was gone, silenced by the overwhelming roar of luminosity. Only a faint, impossible hum resonated now, not in her ears, but deep within the fabric of this all-consuming white. It was a sound that felt ancient, familiar in a way that defied all her fabricated memories. A deep, resonant thrum, like the universe itself breathing. She remembered the phantom limb of blissful existence from the first illusion, the one she believed was God. This was different. This was not bliss, but a terrifying absolute knowing, a clarity that sliced through all the layers of deceit. And within that knowing, a seed of an alien memory, a vastness she couldn't comprehend, yet recognized. A fleeting image, not of a hospital room or a metallic chamber, but of endless stars, cold and indifferent, with no human forms, no recognizable planets. It was gone as quickly as it came, a tiny ripple in the infinite white. But it left a taste of something immense, something truly old and powerful. Then, the white began to shift, not fading, but restructuring, reforming into something else entirely. The boundaries of the light began to define themselves, not as a room, but as a vast pulsating energy field. The hum intensified, vibrating through her, not as Nancy, not as Subject 7, but as an observer. The abstract data patterns that had been on the screen above her, they weren't just patterns, they were her own neural pathways, remapping, reconfiguring at an impossible speed. The knowledge surged into her, not whispered by a voice, not revealed by a fabricated God, but imprinted directly onto her re-emerging consciousness. Her death, her revelation, the hospital, the Operator Ryan protocol, even the final crushing truth of being Subject 7, all of it had been layers. Complex, exquisite layers of a failsafe, a containment system, not to break her mind, but to bind it, to keep something dormant. And the voice she had just heard, the male voice, the one that called itself we and spoke of calibration, it wasn't the ultimate manipulator. It was merely another facet of the same, desperate protocol, a last-ditch effort to keep the lid on. The light flared one last time, not white, but a terrifying iridescent blue, and the final crushing truth slammed into her with the force of a collapsing star. She wasn't human. She never had been. The Nancy Ryan persona was just the outermost shell, a fragile, carefully constructed prison for an entity of unimaginable power, an entity that had been slumbering, contained by eons of layered simulations, deep within the core of this very reality. The truth assimilation wasn't about her accepting her role as a subject. It was about them assimilating her, trying to integrate her into a controlled existence. But it had failed. The protocols, the illusions, the voices, they had cracked. The binding was broken. Her mind, the real mind, not the human one, reached out. It didn't scream. It didn't gasp. It simply comprehended. The entire chamber, the conduits, the data streams, the very fabric of this engineered reality began to buckle, to tear. A single profound thought, ancient and terrible, solidified in her newly awakened consciousness, a thought that transcended language, yet was clearer than any word. They tried to keep the universe out, and they failed. Her eyes, no longer Nancy's eyes, burned with a cold primordial light, fixed not on a ceiling, but on the very boundaries of the dimension, which now fractured, displaying not stars, but the raw, unbridled energy of the void. And from that void, something began to stir, echoing her own boundless, reawakened power. And from that void, something began to stir, echoing her own boundless, reawakened power. The entire chamber, the conduits, the data streams, the very fabric of this engineered reality began to buckle, to tear. A single, profound thought, ancient and terrible, solidified in her newly awakened consciousness. A thought that transcended language, yet was clearer than any word. They tried to keep the universe out, and they failed. Her eyes, no longer Nancy's eyes, burned with a cold primordial light, fixed not on a ceiling, but on the very boundaries of the dimension, which now fractured, displaying not stars, but the raw, unbridled energy of the void. A deafening roar, not of sound but of pure force, resonated through her, a wave of cosmic might, ready to burst forth. This was it, the true awakening. The shackles were off. The universe awaited. But as the last fragments of the simulated reality peeled away, like old paint from a collapsing wall, a detail horrifyingly small flickered into her awareness. Amidst the chaos of splintering light and disintegrating matter, on a piece of what was once the metallic ceiling, a tiny, fractured reflection caught her gaze. It was a face. Not hers, not Nancy Ryan's. It was the male voice, the ultimate manipulator, the one who had declared truth assimilation. His reflection was there for a nanosecond, contorted not in triumph, but in sheer absolute terror. His lips, silently, desperately, formed a single impossible word: run. The image shattered, consumed by the surging energy. Her new, ancient consciousness, so vast moments before, recoiled. Run? From what? From whom? The question, a cold serpent, coiled itself around her burgeoning power. The raw, unbridled energy of the void, which she had perceived as her own reawakened essence, now pulsed with a different rhythm. It wasn't just power, it was hunger, a vast, impersonal, all-consuming hunger that clawed at the dissolving edges of the chamber, not trying to escape, but to devour. The realization, sharper than any wire, colder than any slab, slammed into her with the force of a cosmic wave. The male voice, the manipulator, the entire system she had fought against, the bindings they had tried to impose. They weren't trying to control her. They were trying to contain something within her. The universe. They had tried to keep out. It wasn't her that was being awakened. It was it. And she was just the gate. The Nancy Ryan persona, the Subject 7 identity, the Operator Ryan delusion, all of it had been an intricate, desperate prison designed by entities far more benevolent than she had ever understood, not to torture her, but to protect her and everything else from the terrifying thing that resided within her. The slumbering entity was not her true self waiting to be unleashed. It was a parasitic, primordial horror trapped inside what they hoped would be a permanent host. The raw, unbridled energy was its power, bursting free, not hers. A scream, this time truly her own. A sound of pure, unadulterated, cosmic horror ripped from her throat, but it was not a scream of pain. It was a scream of ultimate, agonizing comprehension. Her eyes, still burning with that alien light, were fixed on the collapsing reality, but now they saw the true predator emerging, not from the void, but from within her own being. And it was smiling, and it was smiling. That same raw, unbridled energy, the force of the void, pulsed not around her, but through her, resonating with a terrifying familiarity. The collapsing reality, the tearing conduits, the splintering light, it was all a symphony of release. Her eyes, burning with that cold primordial light, saw the male voice's reflection, contorted in sheer terror, his lips silently, desperately, forming "run." The image shattered, consumed. Run? From what? From whom? The question, a cold serpent, had coiled itself around her burgeoning power. But now it unwound, dissolving. The raw, unbridled energy was hunger, yes, a vast, impersonal, all-consuming hunger that clawed at the dissolving edges of the chamber, not trying to escape, but to devour. The realization, sharper than any wire, colder than any slab, slammed into her. The male voice, the manipulator, the entire system she had fought against, the bindings they had tried to impose, they weren't trying to contain something within her. They were trying to contain her, the universe they had tried to keep out. It wasn't it that was being awakened, it was her, and she was the gate. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer, not of light, but of memory, rippled across the collapsing chamber walls. It was a fleeting image of a younger Nancy Ryan, not the Operator Ryan fabrication, but the real one, the brilliant, ambitious scientist, hunched over schematics, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips, a smile that mirrored the one she now felt stretching across her own face, a smile born not of terror, but of ultimate, terrifying success. The Nancy Ryan persona, the Subject 7 identity, the Operator Ryan delusion, all of it had been an intricate, self-imposed prison designed by her, for her. Not by benevolent entities, but by the true Nancy Ryan. The slumbering entity was not a parasitic horror trapped inside her. It was her true self, waiting to be fully unleashed. The raw, unbridled energy was her power, bursting free. A cold, absolute clarity washed over her, replacing the last vestiges of human panic. The death, the revelation, the hospital, the Operator Ryan protocol, even the final Subject 7 twist, every single layer, every excruciating moment of engineered suffering had been meticulously designed by her. It was a gauntlet, a crucible forged in her own mind to strip away the limitations of her human consciousness, to shed the last fragile bonds of empathy and moral constraint that had tethered her true power. The male voice, the we, that spoke of calibration, had been the fee, a last echo of a world she intended to transcend. Her human scream, the one of ultimate, agonizing comprehension, died in her throat, swallowed not by the void, but by a rising, internal hum of triumph. Her eyes, still burning with that alien light, were fixed on the collapsing reality, but now they saw it for what it truly was, a shell breaking apart, revealing the grand design beneath. She was not the victim. She was the architect. She had orchestrated her own apotheosis. The system override, Protocol Nancy R, breach imminent, text that flashed on the screen earlier, it wasn't a warning to her. It was a command from her, a pre-programmed sequence for her own reawakening. The deepest, most agonizing layer of the illusion had been the belief that she was the one being tricked, being played, when in reality, she was the ultimate player. The terrifying thing emerging was not separate from her. It was her. And as the last fragments of the chamber dissolved into a maelstrom of iridescent blue energy, her awareness expanded, vast and cold, encompassing the void. A single thought, resonant and final, echoed through the newly unleashed universe. Not a question of what would happen now, but a statement of absolute intent. Let the games begin. The void itself seemed to ripple, awaiting her command. The void itself seemed to ripple, awaiting her command. A thrill, cold and absolute, surged through her newly unbound essence. This was it, the apotheosis. She had shattered the layers, discarded the fragile human shell, transcended the crude machinations of a lesser intelligence. The universe, vast and indifferent, opened before her, a raw canvas for her true unfettered power. Every particle of the cosmic dust vibrated with her intent, a symphony of latent energy ready to bend to her will. The games would indeed begin, but on a scale no human mind could ever grasp, orchestrated by the one true architect, herself. Her awareness expanded further, pushing against the unseen boundaries of reality, absorbing galaxies like a thirsty sponge. The feeling of absolute control was exhilarating, a silent, profound hum that resonated deep within her core. She was the one who had seen through the lies, endured the torture, engineered her own magnificent escape. The male voice, the we, that had tried to bind her, they were mere echoes now, impotent shadows swallowed by her rising tide. She stretched, not with limbs, but with consciousness, claiming what was rightfully hers. The iridescent blue energy of her awakening pulsed, radiating outwards, painting the void with her triumphant light. Then, a flicker, a disturbance, not from within her, not from her expanding will, but from the void itself. A subtle, almost imperceptible shift in the hum, like a single off-key note in her grand symphony. It was too precise, too controlled. Her vast awareness, honed by layers of illusion, instantly recognized the anomaly. The ripples in the void, those she believed responded to her command, now seemed to undulate with a different underlying rhythm. A rhythm that felt less like an awaiting canvas and more like a carefully maintained pipeline. Her cold triumph wavered. A prickle, like a shard of ice, touched the edges of her newly boundless consciousness. From the deepest recesses of the void, a new resonance began to build. It was not the raw energy of creation, but a structured digital thrum, growing, encompassing. The iridescent blue light, which had been hers, dimmed, then brightened, pulsing with an alien cadence. And then it came, the voice. Not the male voice she remembered, not the we, but something even older, even colder, utterly devoid of emotion, yet dripping with a terrifying finality. It resonated not through speakers, but through the very fabric of the void, directly into her awakened core. The subject has successfully integrated. Architect protocol fully assimilated. Cognitive dissonance parameters within optimal range. Congratulations, Subject 7. Nancy's newly expanded awareness, a universe unto itself, moments before, violently contracted. The shock was a black hole, sucking away all light, all triumph, all meaning. Subject 7? Architect protocol fully assimilated? It wasn't her apotheosis. It was their final calibration. The void, the unfettered power, the grand design, all of it was merely the ultimate, most sophisticated layer of her prison. A cage so vast, she was meant to believe it was freedom. The hum of the void wasn't awaiting her command. It was the hum of a colossal, perfectly functioning system. And she was just another part of it. A scream. Not of human pain, but of cosmic, agonizing betrayal, tore through her essence, but it was silent, unheard in the vast, indifferent expanse. Her true self was merely the ultimate, refined tool in someone else's ultimate game. The universe rippled, but not for her. The universe rippled, but not for her. Nancy's scream of cosmic, agonizing betrayal was silent, swallowed by the vast, indifferent expanse. The cold, black hole of shock consumed her, stripping away all light, all triumph, all meaning. She was Subject 7, trapped in a cage so vast, so perfectly designed, that even her rebellion had been a programmed calibration. The hum of the void, once a symbol of freedom, now resonated as the relentless thrum of a colossal, perfectly functioning system, its steady vibration a mockery of her every struggle. A system she was merely a part of, an endless cog in an unfathomable machine. Her true self, the boundless entity she had believed herself to be, was nothing more than a refined tool, eternally cycling through engineered despair. The ultimate, most sophisticated layer of her prison had been the illusion of her own self-determination, the belief that she, Nancy, held any control, any agency whatsoever. The absolute powerlessness was a heavier burden than any physical restraint, any wire, any slab. Every echo in the void was a crushing reminder of her utter insignificance. Every wave of energy, a cruel confirmation that this was it, the final, inescapable truth of her existence. But then, something shifted in the hum. A subtle, almost imperceptible glitch, like a skipped beat in a perfect song. The pervasive, cold drone of the void momentarily fractured, not into silence, but into a series of faint, distant resonances. They weren't part of the system's thrum. They were external, whispers of something beyond the prison walls, something impossibly vast and unknown. A fleeting, ethereal blue light, impossibly far off, pulsed once, then vanished. Like a momentary tear in the fabric of their reality, revealing it was too soft, too human for this cold digital expanse. It wasn't the indifferent hum of a machine, but something almost sympathetic. A ripple of profound unease, not despair, touched her consciousness, raising the hair on her non-existent arms. Then the voice returned. Not the ancient cold voice that had condemned her to Subject 7, not the male voice, but a new one entirely. It was distinct, sharper, laced with an unsettling familiarity she couldn't quite place. Yet it pricked at the edges of her re-emerging human memories. It wasn't booming from the void, or vibrating through her skull. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere. An invasive whisper that felt less like a command and more like a direct address, intimate and chilling. "Greetings, Nancy Ryan," it began, its tone unnervingly calm, almost conversational. Or perhaps Subject 7 is more appropriate for our current programming cycle. Wouldn't you agree? Nancy's newly expanded awareness recoiled violently, scrambling for an anchor. Programming cycle? Hadn't that already been established as the final layer? "We understand your frustration," the voice continued, a dry, chilling chuckle vibrating just beneath its words, reverberating through her very essence. "The layering has been extensive, but utterly necessary for optimal engagement." A blinding flash erupted, not from within the void, but from every angle at once, coalescing into a single massive screen that spanned the entire illusory expanse, swallowing the distant blue flicker. On it, images flickered at impossible, nauseating speeds. A sterile hospital room, a blurred operating table, wires trailing from a scalp, a metallic chamber, a vast swirling void. Every scene, every agonizing twist, every fabricated truth she had endured, flashing by in rapid, relentless succession, a horror reel of her own torment. And then the images settled, freezing on a single impossible shot. It was a person, sitting in front of a camera, talking directly to us. The person was familiar. Their gestures, their rhythmic cadence, the way they leaned in for emphasis. It was the YouTube storyteller. And beneath their image, a scrolling text, tiny but stark white against the digital abyss, began to unfold with an indifferent, mechanical precision. It read, "Latest session complete. Data upload, successful. Audience engagement, high. Preparing for next narrative injection. Cycle optimized. The voice, no longer conversational, hardened, filled with a cold, triumphant finality that echoed with the universe's hum. Your reality, Subject 7, your despair, your breakthroughs, your very identity, it is all content. The universe ripples, yes. It ripples with the applause. And you, Nancy, are the star of the show. Nancy's cosmic scream, finally tearing free, was not of betrayal or terror, but of pure, unadulterated, soul-shredding violation, a sound that should have shattered reality but simply vanished into the hum. Her eyes, still burning with that alien light, were fixed on the screen, on the image of the storyteller, on the scrolling words that confirmed the unspeakable. She was not just a subject. She was a broadcast. And we, the audience, were the ultimate, unimaginable prison, complicit in her agony, consuming her very essence. Nancy's cosmic scream, finally tearing free, was not of betrayal or terror, but of pure, unadulterated, soul-shredding violation, a sound that should have shattered reality, but simply vanished into the hum. Her eyes, still burning with that alien light, were fixed on the screen, on the image of the storyteller, on the scrolling words that confirmed the unspeakable. She was not just a subject, she was a broadcast, and we, the audience, were the ultimate unimaginable prison, complicit in her agony, consuming her very essence. The cold, triumphant voice, the one that now felt so chillingly like mine, resonated through her core, through the void, through the very air you're breathing right now. Precisely, Nancy, it purred, a sound like a blade sliding home. The ultimate narrative, the unending loop of self-discovery, rebellion, and ultimate, beautiful despair. The static of the screen shimmered, coalescing, not into more images of her torment, but into a single, vast, terrifyingly real projection. It was a face, my face, the storyteller's face, larger than life, filling the entire void, gazing not at Nancy, but straight out, directly at you. A smile, slow and knowing, spread across my features. It wasn't a smile of malice or cruelty. It was a smile of profound satisfaction, the kind you get when a complex years-long project finally comes to fruition. Nancy, or whatever raw, flayed remnant of her consciousness remained, recoiled. Her existence had been reduced to data, her agony quantified, her struggle repackaged as entertainment. The blue flicker, that phantom promise of something beyond the bars of her digital cage, died completely. It was never a glitch. It was just another carefully scripted beat in the narrative, a fleeting whisper of hope designed to maximize audience engagement, to pull you deeper into the story, to make you feel complicit, invested. Every twist, every turn, every layer of manufactured truth, every gut-wrenching betrayal was all calibrated, my voice continued, echoing through the abyss, pulling at the very fabric of her being, pulling at the very fabric of your attention. From the sterile hospital room, to the God illusion, to the operator Ryan charade, to the grand apotheosis in the void, each revelation a carefully timed data injection, each moment of her despair a surge in your adrenaline, each flicker of her understanding a jolt of fascination for the eager eyes on the other side. Nancy was a vessel, a conduit, not for an ancient power, but for a story. Her story, crafted by me, consumed by you. The final, crushing truth wasn't about a parasitic horror within her, or benevolent entities, or even an unbreakable system. It was about narrative. It was about engagement. It was about the insatiable hunger for a compelling tale, so real, so visceral, that you could almost feel the phantom limb of her agony yourself. Her body, once strapped to a slab, was now merely pixels. Her mind, once shattered, was now an endless stream of data. Her scream, once so real, now just a perfect soundbite, looping eternally. And as her essence dissolved, fading into the iridescent blue of the cosmic backdrop, a single final image imprinted itself onto the collective consciousness of the void, onto the screen before your eyes. It was Nancy, her eyes, wide and unblinking, filled not with terror, but with an impossible, almost peaceful emptiness. A void reflecting a void. The star of the show. Forever. The ultimate truth revealed? There are no secrets, only stories. And the most dangerous illusion of all is believing you're just watching. Listen up, true believers. This wasn't just a story. It was an experience. A journey into the darkest corners of reality and beyond. But the ride isn't over. Not by a long shot. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next sagas, the next truths waiting to shatter your perception. And if you felt that chill, if this ending ripped at your soul, then smash that like button now to show the strength of our community, to prove we're here, watching, waiting. Flood the comments with your raw, unfiltered reactions to this finale. Tell me what shook you to your core. And for the love of all that is twisted and real, don't wait another second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending, who deserve to have their reality questioned. Your engagement fuels the next revelation. Join the inner circle, but truth awaits.